Bob Bartizek has built one of the most unique O-gauge model railroads you'll ever see. Bob models the Pennsylvania Railroad. His layout is a point-to-point layout with staging yards. Now, if you don't know exactly what that means, just keep watching. I'll explain that in a few minutes. Like most of us, Bob had O-scale trains as a kid, but after college and graduate school, he got started modeling in N-scale.
My wife and I got married after I graduated from college, and we were off to Florida for graduate school for me. And for our first Christmas together, she presented me with an Atlas N-scale train set, Pennsylvania Railroad. So I built a couple of N-scale layouts in spare bedrooms in apartments, and being scale layouts, they had some switching and some operation. They weren't terribly big, but they were fun. So this layout's chugging along, and about that time our son got to be 3 years old, and we went to see a friend at work that had an 8 by 12 foot Lionel layout with all the operating accessories and everything. Well, my son just went out of his mind, of course. It was fantastic for him. And I still had the trains that I had as a kid back at my folks' house. They were only 60 miles away. So we went and got those and set them up for him. Supposedly for him. And I started to buy all operating accessories that I never had as a kid. I had nice trains, but we had very little in the way of accessories. So we bought some of those and had about a 5 by 13 foot layout. And then when he got to be about 8 years old, he and I built a layout together, which was really a lot of fun and very rewarding. It was 13 by 16 foot L-shaped. We had 3 loops of track. They were all interconnected, but we had every operating accessory you could imagine. Then in 1992, job relocation took us out of Connecticut and brought us to Cincinnati. And I said, well, I'm going to get a basement out of the deal. The basement we had in Connecticut was a partial basement. It was pretty small, and that 13 by 16 was about as big as a layout could be in there. When we moved out here, I said, well, I could either build the entire East Coast in N-scale in a basement this size. But N-scale, the trains are light and the track needs to be really clean, and keeping that much track clean wasn't something I was interested in. I've never really been interested in HO trains, primarily because there are so many people doing it and there are so many fantastic layouts. And here in Cincinnati, there's at least 10 world-class HO layouts. They're spectacular. And if you build one of those, well, you've built another one of those. Two-rail O-scale was a little bit of a consideration, not too much. I've never worked in that, but I know that to run big steam engines, and I like big 10-drivered steam locomotives, you need to have somewhere around 60-inch or better radius curves. So you're talking a 10-foot diameter curve at a minimum, and you can obviously get a lot more railroad into a space with tighter curves. And the fact that everything in 3-rail goes around a 6-foot diameter curve had a lot of appeal. So that left 3-rail O-scale. They were just making the first scale brass locomotives and making some scale cars in the mid-late 80s. And I'm talking 1992-3 when we're moving into this house. So I said, I think I can make an operating model railroad with switching operations and everything in 3-rail O. I think I can. I don't know. Nobody's that I knew had ever tried it. But if I do it, if I pull it off, it's going to be different. So that's what we did.
Shortly before that 1992 move to Cincinnati, Bob's wife Ann arranged a neat birthday present for Bob. It was a visit to Phil Klopp's layout.
To say that I was influenced by that is a gross understatement. He's got a basement with 9-foot ceilings. This has 9-foot ceilings. This ceiling is painted black, so is this one. The room is around, or the layout is around the perimeter of the room, lit by spotlights on the layout, but not lighting the aisles, so the aisles are fairly dark. Just really pops when you go into his basement. The layout looks like a museum diorama. It's just spectacular. I designed the floor plan for this house. We took bits and pieces from houses that we'd lived in and houses that we'd seen on tours and whatnot. So as I'm doing that upstairs, I'm thinking about the basement downstairs. And I asked Ann one day, how'd you like to have a breakfast nook in the kitchen? She said, oh, that might be nice. I said, I'm thinking about 10 by 12 feet. She said, oh, that'd be nice. So that's how we wound up with Horseshoe Curve.
Bob used that visit to Phil's layout as a template for building the Pennsylvania and Western. His ceiling is high at 9 feet, and it's painted black. Bob has used properly aimed spotlights to light the layout, leaving the aisles a little dark. This approach truly does make the layout itself pop. The incandescent lights give off a nice, warm glow. They provide a much more pleasant way to light a layout than the harsh light from a row of fluorescent tubes.
This layout, I wanted to have a long main line, so the room is big. The room is 28 feet wide and 52 feet long, not counting Horseshoe Curve here. I designed the main line so that it goes 3 times around the room from staging yard to staging yard. It's not a loop, it's one big spiral, but it's 550 feet, which is 5 scale miles in O scale from one staging yard to the other. And I separated the lines wherever I could so that the train only came through that scene once. It's going to be either beneath that scene or above the scene on the other times around. I brought all the tracks together though at Horseshoe Curve, so if you just sat here during an operating session and watched trains go by, it wouldn't be very long before a train would come by in one direction or the other.
Bob's Railroad is a 3-rail O-scale layout, but its design is taken right out of the HO scale playbook. Many HO scale modelers enjoy running their railroads like the real thing. That means lots of switching, local freights with pickups and setouts at various industries along the main line, and run-through trains that travel the main line from one end to the other. But it was an O-scale guy, the late Frank Ellison and his famous Delta lines, that put forth the idea that our model trains are really a performing art, and the layout itself is their stage. And that's where the idea of staging yards was created. Bob has a staging yard at each end of his main line. Harrisburg staging is at the east end, while Pittsburgh anchors the west end. A staging yard is nothing more than some hidden tracks where trains can be stored, off stage. When it's time for them to appear on the stage, they head out from the staging yard to the layout, where they put on their performance, and then go off stage again when their performance is completed. Here are Bob's 2 staging yards. Pittsburgh is on the upper level and Harrisburg is on the lower level. Now these tracks don't need to be scenic or ballasted because they're hidden. This tunnel is where trains from Harrisburg staging move on to the layout at Gap Junction. Bob's track plan is unique, to be sure, and it's a little tough to envision how it all works together. To give you a better look at Bob's layout, let's take a tour of his railroad. We'll follow one train over the entire railroad so you can see all the various places this model railroad goes. We'll start our tour on the east end at Harrisburg, headed west towards Pittsburgh. Westbound trains from Harrisburg enter the layout, the stage, at a little place called Gap Junction. This is where a branch line to the south leaves the main headed for Bedford and Cumberland. There is also a town on the branch called Franklin, named after Bob's father, where a lot of customers need to be served. The main then goes underneath the city of Annville and Annville Yard to emerge at this tunnel here at Rockview. There's only one customer in Rockview, the Rockview Barrel Company. There's also a team track here. A team track is a track where several smaller customers can load or unload rail cars destined for them. The place is called Rockview because of this unique rock face on the west edge of town. Heading west out of Rockview, the main goes through a short tunnel and emerges here at East Valley. East Valley has a freight station and a couple of team tracks. This is also where the grade up to Horseshoe Curve begins. so helper engines are stationed here. On the P Company, helpers were called snappers, and they get added to many trains here that need extra power to get up the mountain. Double track also begins here in East Valley. The main line is double tracked from here all the way up around the curve and further west into Annville. Another short tunnel brings our train into West Valley. There are a couple of customers here and a small station. It's here that the grade up the mountain begins. The long 3.5% climb is why snappers are needed for many westbound trains here. Horseshoe curve is 1.8%, just like the real thing. Once clear of the curve, the train passes a tower which controls the east end of Annville. It's called AE Tower, so named because it is the Annville East approach to the yard. Just west of AE Tower is this 5-foot-long truss bridge over Franklin. This bridge brings you to the home signals at the east end of Annville Yard. These signals are controlled by the Annville Yardmaster. The engineer calls the yardmaster, and if he can take the train into the yard, he sets the signal for the train to proceed. We've got a clear signal here, so we'll keep moving through Annville. Passenger trains are routed into the yard via the passenger platform, while freight trains are routed into one of several arrival-departure tracks. There are actually 5 different routes for trains to get into the yard, so the yardmaster can almost always get a train either yarded or through the yard as needed. Proceeding west from Annville, the train goes through another tunnel and behind a little scenery, soon to arrive in the town of Lebanon. Lebanon is a busy place. The dispatcher had to hold train CE-12 in the passing siding here so our tour train can get through town. The crew of CE-12 also had to cut the crossing here so their train didn't block Main Street while they waited for the tour train to get here. Heading west out of Lebanon brings us back to Bob's marvelous model of horseshoe curve. Because all the main tracks come together here at the curve, this is always a busy place to watch trains. After rounding the curve again, we go over Franklin on another 6-foot-long bridge on our way to Summit. This time, we'll run behind the city buildings in Annville. Our first time through Annville, we were underneath the city. The second time around, we went through the city and the station. And this third time around, we'll be on the upper level, and the train is hidden behind the city buildings. There are a couple of high trestles on the way to Summit, including this one. Bob has set a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit on these bridges, and he has a stealth speedometer on each one. If you exceed 20 miles an hour, alarms sound and everyone on the operating crew is free to ridicule the engineer, all in good fun, of course. Coming off the steel trestle brings you to this tall, curved wooden trestle around Mount Chapman, named for Bob's good friend, Bob Chapman, who helped with all the hard-shell scenery on this railroad. Once clear of the trestle, the main takes you into Summit, the highest point on the railroad at 58 inches high. There are several industries to serve here in Summit. Departing Summit westbound, the grade starts down at 2%. The main goes by the Furnace Hill Coal Mine, which is the largest coal mine on the railroad. The siding here can hold 18 cars. From there, our train makes another move around Horseshoe Curve on the final leg of its journey to Pittsburgh. Another short tunnel, and the train crosses another big bridge. Once across this bridge, our train leaves the stage, headed into the Pittsburgh staging yard.